Jack and the Flock of Sheep. Once upon a time there lived three young brothers. They owned a few acres of land, but no matter how hard they worked, they never succeeded in harvesting a good crop. Because the youngest brother was frail and sickly and therefore unable to work long hours, his older brothers blamed him for their misfortunes. Whenever they were angry, they would turn to him and say, "Jack, you're a no good fool." Thus it came about that one evening late in the fall, after an especially bad harvest, the two older brothers sat around the fire and discussed their troubles. Before too long, they decided that the land could not support the three of them, and because they were neither wise nor kind, they decided that they would get rid of Jack the Fool. The next morning, one of the brothers turned to Jack and said, "We're going for a walk." "Oh, where are we going?" said Jack. "To heaven," replied the middle brother, with a wry smile on his face. "Oh, let me come too," said Jack. "We don't want to show you the way," replied the older brother. "So if you want to come along, we will have to put you in a sack." "Well, that's fine with me," said Jack, not realizing that his brothers meant to take him to a distant lake and drop him into it. At once, Jack crawled into the sack. The brothers tied it up tightly and ran a pole through the knot. Then they started off, each lifting an end of the pole on their shoulder. After having walked for several hours, the two brothers became tired and their throats were very dry. Soon they reached a roadside inn. "Let's stop for a while," said one. "I'm too tired to continue on the right way." "All right," said the other brother. "It will give me a chance to quench my thirst." They dumped the sack in front of the inn door. "We'll be back soon, Jack. Then we'll show you heaven," laughed the older brother. After some time had passed, Jack became impatient, and, as was habit, he started to talk to himself. Just at that moment, a shepherd who was leading his flock to the pasture passed by and heard Jack talking. "What's the matter with you?" asked the shepherd. "Oh," replied Jack, "I'm on my way to heaven." "Is that so?" replied the shepherd. "Do you think I might be able to get over there too?" "Well, certainly," said Jack, by this time somewhat suspicious of the brothers. "Just open the sack and you can take my place." Tired of his cramped quarters, Jack was eagerly looking forward to getting out of the bag. "Oh, very nice of you," replied the shepherd. "And since I have no use for my sheep in heaven, you may just as well take them." Just as soon as the knot was untied, out of the sack came Jack, and in crawled the shepherd. Jack then took charge of the sheep and leisurely drove them home. It wasn't long after this exchange that the two brothers came out of the inn. Each grabbed one end of the pole, and together they raised the sack. "It seems to me," said the oldest brother, "that Jack has put on some weight." "Never mind that," replied the other. "We're not far from our destination." About an hour later they reached the lake. There they unslung the sack, and with a mighty heave pitched it into the water, with the hapless shepherd inside. "Good riddance," said one to the other with a grin, and they turned around and made their way back home. As they neared the house, they cried out in amazement, for there stood Jack, surrounded by a beautiful flock of sheep. "Is it really you, Jack?" the older brother asked in complete disbelief. "It certainly is," replied Jack. "And many thanks for the great favor you've done for me." "How's that?" the two brothers asked in unison. "Well, you were quite right to think that passage to heaven is through the lake, for it was there I found all these fine sheep." The two brothers stared at each other in utter disbelief. "And there's so many more there," continued Jack. "I only took the first ones." "Oh, there's no time to lose," said the two. "Won't you show us the way?" "I'll gladly do that, brothers," replied Jack. Quickly, the three turned to the lake. "Where exactly is the place that you found the sheep?" asked the oldest brother. "Right there," said Jack, pointing to a dark spot in the water. His first brother leaned forward to get a better look. Jack gave him a swift push, and he fell in. When they did not reappear immediately, the second brother asked, "Well, what is he doing now, Jack?" "Undoubtedly he is picking out the finest sheep." "Oh, Jack, push me in too. I also would like to have a chance to pick some from the fine sheep." Jack obliged with pleasure. Then, with a great grin on his face, he turned around and went home. As they splashed about in the water, the two brothers soon understood that they had been duped. They realized also that it was not Jack who was the fool. When they returned home, they asked him for forgiveness. Knowing that his brothers had learned their lesson, Jack grasped their outstretched hands. Together, all three went back to their work, tilling the soil and working the land. For some reason, their land began to bear fruit. Within a few years, the three brothers were among the most prosperous and generous farmers in the land, and never did they turn away any men who sought their help.